Superintendent Board of Commissioners work session meeting for Thursday, July 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Roll call, Manager Falk.
Commissioner Stump,
Here.
Commissioner Atwood,
Here.
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Zona,
Here.
Commissioner Wingren,
Here.
Commissioner Goss,
Here.
President Hagus.
Here, could everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? If any residents would like to speak tonight, could you please sign the book at the podium? All right, let the record reflect no residents' input tonight. Work session discussion topics, Manager Falk.
Item number one, the 2023 Township-wide speed study. A few months ago, we started working on a traffic calming policy, and we brought that in front of the board, and we're still working on that to present at a later date. But during that, we discovered that a lot of the roads in the subdivisions were posted at 20 miles per hour. We are unsure how that came to be. However, they are unenforceable, the 20 mile per hour speed limit. We can enforce them with our ordinance. We could pull a driver over. However, we can only give them a warning. If we give them a ticket, it goes to the magistrate upholds the law. He cannot, issue fine them or anything. So our engineers, Mr. Robinson and Mr. Grabiak, spent a lot of time going through our ordinances, where we have the speed limits set for each road, and did some speed studies. And it's our recommendation to the board to fix this issue is amending the current speed limit ordinance and increasing those from 20 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. We don't anticipate the speed of the driver increasing. However, when we get these complaints that people are speeding on their roads, now we can actually cite them instead of letting them go. And this is going to bring it up to the PA vehicle code. Are there any questions or discussion about that?
Yeah, so you know what? You're danged if you do and danged if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
If we leave them, see, I'm going to disagree with you lovingly. I will disagree with you in the fact that the speed won't increase. I think if you take a current existing 15 or 20 and bring it up to 25, I think you're still going to have those 7 and 8 and 10 mile an hour over that speed limit. Now, I know what's enforceable based on what Chief Rizzo said. On a 25 mile an hour road, I don't even know if I want to even say this because I don't even want this public to know about this, that you can go up to 35 without getting cited.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just terrible, number one. My concern is if you guys change those signs up to 25, you're letting people get up to 35 before you even cite them. And what's going to be the cost of changing those signs? Are you going to change the signs, or are you going to slap some new stickers on them with numbers that, like a number, a 2 and a 5?
Yeah, we would slap a 5 over the 0.
Okay.
That'd be
all
the
right,
most
so it'd be
cost
more-
effective.
So more cost advantageous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know what you're saying, I know what you're putting out there, but again, it's a dang if you do and dang if you don't thing. Wow, I don't know, what's everybody else think, I guess?
Can I ask what the reasoning behind why 20 is unenforceable?
The PA Vehicle Code Title 75 establishes the statutory speed limits. If the speed limit is other than 25, say 20 miles per hour, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Robinson, a speed study has to be done showing that speed limit can be reduced and enforced.
Yeah, a 20 mile per hour speed limit is not illegal unless it's supported by an engineering and traffic study. Now, for instance, the statutory speed on local roads is 25 miles per hour. School zones can be reduced by statute up to 15 miles per hour. But to go down from a 25 to a 20 is very difficult. There has to be certain conditions met. For instance, to reduce a 25 mile per hour on a local road, major portion of has to have insufficient stopping sight distance if traveling at the 85th percentile speed. Another is a corner sight distance. The minor road versus the major road is less than necessary stopping sight distance for values through vehicles. And the third is major crashes. And we do have about 4 roads here that we keeping at 20 miles per hour because of certain conditions, because of stopping sight distance curves and not being able to look. And we actually, when we did our safe running speeds, we did field measurements on those. We spent about 3 days, Cody and I, on this, and able to establish this chart. So 20 mile per hour is not illegal. And if it's illegal if it's not supported by an engineering and traffic study. And I don't agree that traffic, changing from a 20 to 25, that traffic is going to, the speed is going to increase. Traffic will typically travel at the speed limit that they feel comfortable with. We're not going to see increases in speed if we change those signs from 20 to 25 miles per hour. And there is a template. It's just not the 5 that we'll put a 25 over a 20. It's about $5, the template.
I will bet you $1 whole,
Oh, you got it.
because that's all I bet, $1. And I will bet you $1. I'm going to go the other way with this. And so if you guys want to increase the speed limits to accommodate the signs for 25, then I'm going to turn your attention to page 38 and 39 of this little buddy. And we're talking speed humps versus speed bumps. You have the Watts humps and you have the Seminole humps. Watts, basically, you know, what you have is 12 feet from the minute it starts to the minute it ends, 12 feet with a 3 to 4 inch rise. Okay, that's a hump, not a bump. So I'm recommending humps. Emergency vehicles do not like speed bumps, they like humps. So for that, I would yield to the humps. The Seminole speed hump is 23 feet in length from the minute it starts to the minute it ends, 6 feet, flattens out for 10 feet, and tapers back down for 6 feet with a rise of 3 to 4 inches. And you're looking at a cost per hump of $1,500 to $2,500 per hump. My point in bringing this up is we've got to curtail the speeding that's going on in our neighborhoods, and we can't have the police everywhere at once. So how do we do it? Well, we've got to put in some mitigation things. And I think the speed humps, if you guys want to run that speed limit up to 25, but we need to do something. I invite anybody to come to Ormsby. I'm sure every road in one of your wards is a speedy road. Ormsby is a speedy road. I can't tell you how many times I literally vocally holler at people to slow down, and they whip me the finger. And I can't believe it. They're doing 30, 45 mile an hour. It's only 25, and they have the audacity to blow me the finger, even though, my God, they're wrong. But it is what it is. But I think we need to do something before something really, really bad happens to one of our citizens. That's-
I have something to say. So just because I don't think that we're really discussing the speed humps versus bumps
Right.
issue right now.
Right.
Going back to 20 versus 25, my opinion is that I don't think that people will even notice the change. It's 5 miles per hour. And if they're not following the speed limit at 20, I don't think that they're going to follow it at 25 either. So if it would help us to be able to at least cite, I think that it's a good move for us to increase it for 5 miles per hour and cost effective too. Now, if
you
we want to
understand-
talk about, if we want to bring up the whole McKee Road situation, that's a completely different situation. But what Harry is proposing, I think is a completely different topic right now. And I am definitely okay with amending the ordinance to increase it by 5. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
I'm comfortable with it too. That gives the police department at least some enforcement. And then if we obviously have a few roads that we had traffic studies before in the past or have issues with sightline, obviously we can support that with document to keep those at 20. Or if there's ones that arise in the future, maybe we could do a traffic study for those particular roads at that time.
In addition to that, there's something called the white and black signs are the regulatory signs. You'll see the black and yellow, those are advisory signs. So even if we have a 25 mile per speed limit on a certain street, and there's a bad curve that we want to alert, we put a advisory yellow and black sign with a 15, with showing the curve with a 15 mile per hour speed limit. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And I think I said it last month or the month before that everybody, when you see a car driving by, we all think it's speeding, but the majority of the time it's not really going that fast. I think this shows that. And that I don't think anyone's going 45 on any of these back roads. I mean, no offense, Eric. You look at this, no one's even over 30 on all of these pages of stuff here. I didn't see any. I think when you see a car going out of the corner of your eye or you hear a loud exhaust, you think it's going fast. From somebody that sat and ran radar for years and years, cars aren't going as fast as you think they are when you see them. So I'm in agreement with this too. And just, I know if we do get radar that's legal for local police to use, they can cite it 6 over with the radar unit in Pennsylvania. So hopefully if that's made legal sometime, we can start citing it 6 over.
I think you got some direction, put it on the agenda for next week.
Next week, we'll have a motion for advertisement of the ordinance. Item number 2, proclamations. This was at a request of Commissioner Gray to discuss proclamations.
I don't requesting it be on the agenda, but yeah, I have a real problem with the proclamation we made last month that nobody knew about it. Well, not nobody. Apparently, one commissioner, the manager, and the president knew about it. I know I heard from other people that said they didn't know either. I know I spoke at the meeting to Ron next to me. I said, where did this come from? And he said, I don't know. It was on the agenda that was sitting here when we sat down. I don't have a problem with proclamations. What I keep harping on is about sharing information among the whole board. And for the way it happened last month, in my opinion, someone exceeded their authority by using township resources and staff and to make a proclamation that the whole board wasn't even aware of. And I will tell you, I would not have supported, because that particular issue, I think the commissioners should stay in their lane. If you want to make a proclamation about fire departments or police department or something within our wheelhouse, that would be fine. But I would not have strayed into the school district. And for the manager and the president to act based on one commissioner's request, I think is incorrect. So, I know, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Last July, I reached out to Zach and Harry about a resident that lived here her whole life and was turning 100 years old. Her daughter reached out to me and asked if we could put together a proclamation. She got one from the congressman
Sure.
the senator, the governor. And I didn't know anything about it, so I just went to our president and the township manager, and he put one together for her 100th birthday, and they were extremely excited about it. So I was responsible for that one last summer, and I didn't really
And-
know which way to go with direction. But that's how that one was birthed. But I agree, it would have been nice to know about last month's,
Right,
just having an
and-
idea of what was going on.
Something as benign as a 100th birthday that I imagine everybody would support is not really the issue, but the process is the issue about how we've had these proclamations. There was language in the Chat GPT, is that right? GPT? Chat
I believe so,
GPT?
yes.
Language in that I would not have approved. And so a big difference between happy 100th birthday, which we would all agree on, than the diversity, equity, and inclusion language that was in the proclamation that was made. Again, I think that's outside our wheelhouse. For teachers, that should have been a school district function. Everyone I spoke with, and I have a friend that has a daughter as a teacher, they couldn't understand why we would do that. So again, for 18 months, I've been preaching about sharing information. In the organizational chart, the residents are on top, and then the manager, and then, the residents, then the commissioners, then the manager, then department directors. I just think that the manager needs to understand that he works for a majority of the commissioners, not just one being the president or one being an individual ward commissioner. And the information has to go to everybody on something like that.
Moving forward, if there's a request for a proclamation, is it okay to put it on the work session? And I can have something drafted for that proclamation, so if you guys want any of that language changed, we can do it during the work session. Is that
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
fine moving forward doing it
That's
that way.
fine.
okay?
For the proclamations last month, I did request from our board president that it be placed on the agenda for the work session. It was not.
I saw that.
And,
And I don't fault you for that.
When I was always under the impression that in order to get something on the agenda, you had to go to the president in order to get that, not the board as a whole. So I'm not sure.
But, no, your email said you wanted basically the discussion on the work session agenda for it to happen at the regular meeting, which was
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
I made the
It
mistake.
just didn't appear on the work session. That's the issue.
Okay, for
Yeah.
some reason, I thought it was the how we went about getting it on the agenda that was the problem, which I thought it was always through the president.
Oh,
to get
yeah,
something on the
he
agenda.
absolutely has control of the meeting agenda, but not of the actions that are gonna happen because of whatever,
Makes sense.
discussion.
And I apologize, I did make that mistake.
Noted, thank you.
And I personally just would have liked to know for what purpose they were being recognized. That would have been very informative and I think helpful to all of us.
Sure, I don't mind sharing about it. This past winter, I know a few of us were at the Queen of Angels when they had the grant presentation, and they announced that one of their educators was winning what they call the Golden Apple Award. So that's 3 educators out of all 17 schools of the Diocese of Greensburg. So we have an educator like that in our backyard, plus the Norwin Council of PTAs. It's not the school district, it was the PTAs. did pick every year they pick outstanding educator in each building. I also reached out to Adelphi to see if they wanted to participate in it as well. I did not hear back from them, but it was for all educators, inclusive of not just Norwin, but also the teacher at Queen of Angels. And I thought it was an appropriate platform to recognize what these individuals are doing in the lives of our children. And that's what makes North Huntington such a desirable place to come to. And I just thought we'd put it on the board and talk about it and go from there. But I'm not sure where the miscommunication went.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. Moving forward, item number 3, rental property registration. As you remember, we touched base about this back in December of last year, and we wanted to follow up now, put it back on the front burner for, give us some time, to give you guys some more food for thought. If you guys wanted to move forward with this, we can start with the implementation of it in 2024. We did find an ordinance from Hampton Township, which we liked, that when if we were to put this into an effect immediately, it would be passed in the next 3 months, but go in effect starting January 1st of 2024. In that ordinance, there's language that it would give the property owner 3 years to get that property inspected. But within the first 90 days, they have to get that property registered with the township. And part of that registration, there's some forms in there. I give a list of the tenants, and emergency numbers. There's an exemption form as well. But what this does is it allows us to collect the low-hanging fruit. There's about over 1,000 or maybe 1,900 properties that are rental properties. With those rental properties, those people aren't paying the business tax that we have, and more likely are not paying the earned income tax to the municipality. So this allows us to catch that low-hanging fruit. If we have a property, a rental property, one will know who lives there. We have some contact information for emergency purposes. It'll get inspected every 3 years, so we know that renter is safe. And we can, collect some business taxes on top of that, and some earned income tax as well. So that model ordinance is there from Hampton Township. There's other forms there as well. And as far as the registration, $10 registration per unit, we believe will bring in around $20,000. And the triannual inspection, it could be anywhere between $35,000 and up, depending on how many apartment buildings we capture. And then, of course, anytime there's a new residential property that's built, a new house, they have to get inspected to receive an occupancy inspection. And then that's it. They could sell the property later on, and then there's no occupancy inspection when there's a transfer of deed. However, when the rental property, if a developer builds an apartment complex, then they'll get inspected initially, and then every 3 years after that.
I would just like to say that I think North Huntington is one of the few townships right now that do not have this sort of ordinance. And we're one of the few that don't have an occupancy inspection upon the sale of a property too, any type of property. But I think we should make our checklist very clear to a landlord as to what they need to have. I know we have our volumes and volumes of the Uniform Construction Code, but a good checklist will be very helpful to a landlord. And out of the one that I had here, I think we ought to require carbon monoxide detectors, at least on the furnace level. With a 2-story or a rental that has windows that don't meet sill height code, I think we should require a fire escape ladder for the safety of the residents. The checklist here was not very specific as to where you need a GCFI outlet, and that should be 6 feet within any water source, particularly in kitchens, bathrooms, laundry rooms, garages, and outside outlets. And I think we should also define the bedroom as being at least 70 square feet and having a window and a privacy door and a closet. And there again, if the window is above the code for a sill, then it should have a fire escape ladder going out. If it's in the basement, it should have a fire escape ladder to get someone out. And there should be a sink in the kitchen and the bathroom that has hot and cold running water, a flushing toilet, and at least one shower or bathtub to make it a livable unit. Because believe me, I have been in properties. I was in one today, for example, had no kitchen whatsoever and no inside toilet. And somebody was living in there. So I think we need to be very
Was that
clear.
in the township?
No, it was not.
Okay. Clarify that.
So, but I think our checklist should be clear to a landlord as to what we're going to require, and we should have that checklist on one page to make it easy for that landlord to just check off.
We can
Right.
do that.
Ryan, doesn't the UCC already have a definition of a livable, inhabitable apartment or a dwelling?
Yeah, a lot of this language is similar. There's
Yeah.
just little nuances, like Virginia said, this isn't as detailed as what's in the code, the construction code.
There's chapters and chapters in that UCC.
It's over 4,000 pages.
So, and nobody's going to take and read through 400 pages. I have.
4,000.
4,000. But, yeah.
But if the board wishes, the next step would be to authorize the solicitor to draft an ordinance at next week's meeting, and then present that draft ordinance to you next month to move forward with advertisement if you want to continue. The checklist, we can work on making it one page. That's not part of the ordinance, so that's fluid. That'll be based upon the UCC code, but we can tailor it to have a one page with checklist as well.
I believe Irwin has a checklist, so we might want to see what Irwin's, I
Okay.
think it's online too, if I'm not, memory serves me.
Okay.
So the fees, number one, are going to be passed right on to the resident in the form of rent by landlords. And this would have to be enacted by ordinance, right?
The fees would be in the fee schedule.
Okay,
Not in- yeah.
I get that, but it would be an ordinance that we would have a public input hearing on, correct?
If you choose to.
If we,
There's no requirement for a public hearing on this.
well, I think we should if we go that route. I'm opposed to it,
I understand it, I'm just saying, there's no legal requirement to have a public
Really?
hearing. But if,
okay.
I want you to know, it makes sense to do that.
I also feel that whenever we're setting a fee, it should at least cover the time of the person who is there working with that application, putting it into like a computer program, postage handling, et cetera. And I think it would be normal to consider like the hourly rate being the fee, rounding that off somehow to being the fee to enroll something. Otherwise, you know, we're losing money.
Instead of a $10 registration fee.
Instead of a $10.
Make it an hourly rate.
You're going up
Right.
to $30, at least $30.
$30, $20, $30. Because if somebody
It's
takes.
not 20, it's 30, because that's
Well-
what they're going.
Well, if somebody takes a half an hour to process the application.
Then we can only
That's
charge
different
them
than
half,
hourly, right.
half the hourly rate.
Yeah.
Like if
Saying
it, ta-
hourly
yeah.
rate, that's not a half hour fee.
Whatever it's going to take you to process and input this, you should have a good idea, Harry, as to what it would take to process something like this, or Ryan. would have a
Yeah,
good idea.
it's, I think when I did it, it probably maybe 10 to 15 minutes per application.
Okay, well, whatever.
But
the
this is
hourly rate
new
is.
for us. We know if this gets passed the next few months, we would build the database. We're going to look at our tracer system to see if it can house that information. There are other third-party vendors that monitor this stuff, but we want to use our in-house, first a tracer system to do this. If not, we can look elsewhere or build a program internally. I mean, we have that capability, I believe, and then go from there.
How many rentals properties do we have?
I want to say there was about 1,900 at last check, and that was in December.
Okay.
There's about 11%. And we believe that's going up. And there was, I can't remember the news source, but I think about a month or two ago, one of the local news stations reported on people buying properties and turning them into rental properties.
So are you looking for a motion to further this?
No, well, yeah, next month or next week on the agenda, there'll be a motion authorizing the solicitor to draft the ordinance for this.
So staff would have to basically inspect 633 properties a year if it's a 3-year schedule.
Well, long-term range is a budget time, because this is going to generate revenue to hire a code enforcement officer at a much lower rate, probably between, $35,000 to $45,000 a year. And that'll take a lot of burden off of Josh and Tom. But one of their main duties would be this, along with the other code violations throughout the municipality. Municipality our size with over 14,000 structures, we feel best practices with probably 3 code enforcement officers, but, feasibly and fiscally, we can't afford them. So, but this will catch a lot of low-hanging fruit to help fund that position, and so that's my thought process.
So we're going to raise revenue through fees on registration and inspections to cover the cost of hiring somebody else to grow government and intrude in people's lives. I'm opposed to it.
I have a question, excuse me. What is the purpose of having this rental property registration? The only real reason I've heard in the last few many months is literally just to generate revenue, which I'm gonna have to side with Mr. Gray on this. I don't agree with just enacting something to raise revenue. So what is the purpose of this registration?
Well, it's multi-purpose. The big one is safety. It helps thwart off or slumlords. There's slumlords out there. There's nothing that we can do. This gets us into the unit to inspect those units every 3 years to make sure that it's safe.
How many slumlords do we have right now in the 1,900 properties?
I do not know, but I'm sure there are some.
Do we
out there.
get complaints constantly about it?
I mean, here and there, we get references, we get police reports that make our way up to the code officer, and
Right.
he goes out for inspection of the premises. We just had one last week at a trailer park, but, I mean, every so often.
Yeah, but it's not overwhelming. We don't need to hire somebody else just to handle it, right now, until we go out and generate our own problem. And then we have to hire somebody.
So one is life safety, and two, having
And
that,
government always uses the excuse of safety. That's how they sell every intrusion, every tax, every fee. Government safety. If you save one life, I'm bigger believer in freedom.
And as promised, the board, that, the last thing anybody wants to do is raise taxes. We're at that point. Last year, we used $800,000 of the general fund reserve to balance the budget.
Right.
And then we moved some more over for paving projects and stormwater projects. We have, $10 million of MS4 projects that we have to do in the next few years. With the registration, this catches that low-hanging fruit of business occupancy taxes, earned income taxes. I want to, before I tell you, we have to, this is my recommendation to the board to raise taxes to continue providing the current services. We've done everything that we can within our wheelhouse or within our power to collect as much revenue as we can prior to raising taxes X, Y, Z.
I think that being able to say we're implementing this registration fee and triannual inspection fee and that money coming into the township is one thing, but if we're just gonna go and create a position that's funded by that, it's not really doing us anything. It isn't benefiting us
Well,
financially.
that's not 100% yet. I'm probably about 50% there.
I mean, we would have to vote on that position down the road. That's not
Right, at
saying
budget
that,
time.
yeah, that's not saying that that's a given.
And we may not need that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can hold off until, if this gets implemented, we can see how well our staff is doing, get some feedback from them if they feel that they need help, maybe a part-time code officer, who knows?
I know that they're
Just don't
already maxed out right now,
Yeah.
as far as code enforcement, so
But
it makes me nervous adding on 1,900 more units to manage when they can't keep up that well with what's going on. And nothing against them, I mean, I think they're fantastic, but it's a lot for the manpower that we have. So I think
Yeah.
adding on all of this is asking a lot.
And it sounds like from your description, you're basically saying if we get these registration fees and inspections, we're actually going to take that money and use it to fund other things like maybe roads or bridges or infrastructure, drainage. I don't know what that would go for, but number one, I think the fees and registrations are supposed to, or the inspections are supposed to cover the cost of that service and not actually be inflated to cover other things. So I don't see where you're gaining anything.
My one question was just more so about the inspection. If we were gonna even have the support staff to do the inspections, and let alone if we were to go down that road. I mean, I would imagine by looking at the checklist of everything to look at on the property, it's probably gonna be more, and I think time-wise, than probably $50 worth of inspection. I think you could probably spend maybe at least a good hour, if not 2 or 3, going through a property, checking out the list. I wouldn't be totally opposed to do like a registry to have a list of rental properties that were actually in the township. I think that might be a okay starting point, and then if it would balloon out to something that would be inspections, but I just don't know if we have the support staff to do it. And if we were gonna have to hire somebody, I think if anything, we'll be putting money into this project versus actually being ahead on it. But I
And-
don't think it's a bad idea to have a list of registered rental properties in the community, just so that the community knows as far as planning or zoning, even police department and public safety, that these are rental properties. I don't think that's a bad resource to have.
We can start with that if the board desires.
And then I want to bring up one other thing, which is on the inspections, we currently have drainage facilities out there that were approved for a residential house or something, where in the, is it the property Anyway, in the approval for a facility, it says we're going to inspect it every 3 years again. And I recently asked, within the past year, when the last time we inspected one of the ones in my area, and there was no answer, I don't think, which indicates to me we only go out and inspect them when they're a problem too. So I think we're doing, I know Ryan has said many times that we're basically complaint-oriented. We wait for a complaint and then investigate it, basically. If we go out looking for trouble, we're going to find enough to staff an army.
I would tend to agree with you partly on that, and that's why I think maybe I would be open to the idea, not saying I'd support it, as just as far as registration, because if the public knows that any rental property has to be registered, that gives them an avenue to actually reach out, and maybe they could reach out and say, actually, I want my rental property inspected to see if it's up to code at that time. That it's a complaint-driven basis, not a triannually or every time a tenant changes over.
I'm sure there's private property managers that would inspect the property if somebody wanted it. I mean, they have home inspections now, you call your own before you buy. So I'm sure they would do it for rental too.
Part of title clearance now, when you sell a property, is to get your inspection of your sewer camera dye
Right.
test for your sewer line. But in every other municipality, practically, they also have an occupancy inspection. And that's part of a clear title process. And the municipalities charge for that. They charge for, like a certification that taxes are paid for, et cetera. So
That's on a sale.
that's on a
Correct.
sale,
Yeah.
and you could consider something like this on a sale is before a new person begins to own this property, you have an inspection on it. But that's just one of the options. And I was going to bring up, are we going to be able to catch somebody that's doing an Airbnb or a VRBO property? And are we looking at that as a rental? That's like a short-term rental of a couple days. So, how are you gonna handle that would be another question.
I say we don't. I say just leave it alone. Move on.
I'd have to agree with Commissioner Gray. I think we should move on from this.
I see both sides of it, just what you said, Virginia. If somebody's running an Airbnb, you can say just move on and leave them alone. But if it's beside your house and there's different people coming in every week, in and out of that house, then I think everybody's gonna have a different opinion on that. And that nobody, and the house is getting run down and there's different families moving in for a week or for 3 days and then they're out and next week someone else is in. If that's beside you, you're gonna have an issue with that. So, I mean, I'm torn on both sides of this. If you live beside a rental house that's not being upkept properly, you're gonna have an issue with that.
I agree, and I understand, but there again, we have the complaint, and we've attacked other situations, exactly that. I know another one that was in my area got resolved, exactly what you were saying was happening.
I'm gonna ask maybe Director Fonzie, I know Commissioner Gray kind of asked about the rental properties and how many, per se, complaints we get driven from them, but, if there's just a complaint on a property, per se, we might not know if it's a rental property or not under the current state.
That's correct, yeah. I mean, if we had a rental registry, at least identify these rental properties, that would give us something to go on if there was a repeat offender, or if you wanted to limit short-term rentals. I think short-term rental is defined as anything less than 30 days in the UCC. So, I mean, that'd be a springboard off of the rental registration, and not talking about inspections or anything, but just to get an idea of who owns a rental property in North Huntington.
I
If
guess
we
that
have
would
a,
be- Go ahead, Commissioner
if
Gray.
we have a complaint, don't we talk to the resident first? And they could say, hey, it's not my house, I rent it.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's what happens, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see a registry.
Well, my concern was too, if that complaints happened and the property owner, maybe the resident that was living at the home says it's a rental, I don't own a property. And we have a hard time getting a hold of the person that actually owns a property to address whatever X issue is.
I don't see how that happens. Do we not have maps and the county knows who owns it?
I mean, we know who owns it. Some of these rental companies are out of state and
Right.
they're renting and they're not upkeeping the property. So somebody's living there, but they have high grass. They're not cutting the grass because the owner's responsible for that.
Right.
So we lose a lot of time going back and forth trying to get to these LLCs that are somewhere out of state. So that's kind of adding a new layer for Josh to kind of get through. And it makes the process a little bit harder, but
Where do we send the letter?
to the owner. To the owner.
At the
And then-
address that you have.
At the address that's listed on the deed.
And
Yeah.
then once we do that, we're covered, right? We can go in and mow it and lien the property.
Yeah, after a period of 30 days or whatever's in the violation letter.
But they do not go on property if it's occupied. They will only mow on lots that are abandoned, because they said it's a safety concern. That came directly from Josh.
If that's the
So if
case.
somebody's living there, they'll cite them and tell them that they have X amount of days to get this property mowed, but the township will not go onto the property as long as it's occupied.
I don't know, is that true, Ryan? Because they just went
mean-
and cut that tree down out of that yard that I spoke.
Well-
And that's what Josh told me
They
was
just
the
went to a
problems
house
on my
and took the
street.
police with them on that.
Yeah, I was going to say,
on that
the
tree.
police could escort
Yeah.
the township employee. I think it's just a matter of feel, or if the township employees want to request a police presence. But do we want to be pulling police resources to go cut grass? Probably not.
I guess my only follow-up, when I was asking you about the question about the registry, which I was open to the idea, obviously you're taking staff time. I know that's public information that can be found at the courthouse, but that's obviously taking staff time to get that information.
Yes.
I'm open to the idea of having a rental registry for the properties. I don't know a whole lot more than that at this point, but I think that's just a good tool for township staff to have, basically a point of contact for rental properties.
Do we have any idea, out of these 1,900 apartments, a percentage of the tenants who are not paying their wage taxes?
No, because we don't, I don't know if Berkheimer would release that information.
But we would have those names, if we created a rental registry, we would have those names to cross-reference.
Right, we can give that to Berkheimer to cross-reference, see if those individuals are paying their earned income tax and occupation tax.
So rental property is a business, yes?
Yes,
And the township requires an occupancy permit, yes?
for new residential structures, yes,
Only for new,
correct.
okay. Thank you.
Any other board discussion?
Is the consensus of the board to move forward with just the registration and not the inspection?
I think Commissioner Gray and Commissioner Atwood, if I'm not misspeaking, weren't in favor of, I think, either form of.
Correct.
Thing.
I say we
like I said,
drop it and move on.
I'm personally
and
open
I think
to
it-
having a register. Not outside of that, I'm not comfortable at this time to balloon it out to inspections or anything of that nature. But I think it's a good tool for township staff just to have the point of contact, and at least we have a registered list of properties that are currently being rented.
And I agree with Zach on that.
I'm good with the registration, and I'm still actually open-minded on the inspection and stuff on that aspect too.
And I'm also in favor of getting them inspected at least whenever they transfer at this point.
Transfer what?
For a
Ownership.
sale,
Ownership?
Ownership.
Ownership.
yes. Because everybody else is, that's part of title clearance for just about everybody else.
I think that's two separate issues. I think the
Right.
rental registry is one thing, and then having permits or inspections upon transfer or sale of property, transfer of deed, whatever you want to call it, it's just good practice. I mean,
But we don't do that now.
but I think it's two separate things. I think we could do one without the other, or do both, or, we can attack them separately, which I wouldn't be opposed to that.
But I think the
So-
registry is a good start. And
Thank
then
you,
we
God.
can go
I
from there.
consensus of putting them
No,
on for
I didn't hear
registries.
Commissioner Goss.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the registry. I'm with Ron on this. I really am. Rich, I'm sorry to say, but, that's,
As long as you're on the record, that's
I
what
am on-
matters
I
to
am
me.
on- All right, I am on the record. Yes, please. Thank you.
So there's 4 to
There's-
move forward
yeah,
with a registry.
Yeah, just starting with the registry of listing of rental properties, and I'm comfortable keeping, I think it was a $10 fee structure, the same for that. And then we could at least start there and see where we get to at that point.
If I may, this registry really has to have a name of an owner. I know I've got, unfortunately, a lot of complaints over in my ward of companies that are coming in and buying houses, some LLC, and my God, we don't even have a point of contact, a good telephone number. These companies are like ghost companies that nobody can get in touch with them, say, hey, that grass is too high, you need to do something. So we've got a problem there, and that needs to be rectified because it's not fair for the 31,000 constituents in this township to see a property that's owned by an outside company that is not pulling their fair share like the other neighbors are doing and keeping their properties clean and tidy. And it's just not fair to the good people and the good citizens of this community. So we really need to nail down a good point of contact and not accept it's an LLC that's sitting out in Nevada and there's a
And
phony
I-
address.
And I was gonna say, when you pull up the tax record or the GIS on that, they have a mailing address to get the tax bill.
Okay.
So we do have a contact for them. It's a mailing address. And
Yeah,
then
that's where we send the violation letters, and that information is in our GIS that we populate with every deed
Just because we send a
transfer.
letter doesn't mean it's gonna be acted on. You guys know that.
But also, just because they list a phone number doesn't mean that that phone number is gonna stick around either.
I agree
So,
with you. That's my point too.
yeah, but
yeah,
every
but-
deed has a certificate of residence on it, and that's where the tax bill
We've got
gets
to
sent.
come up with something to protect the residents and their property value. It is not fair for an outside agency to come into this community, decrease the property value of the good people of this community, and expect for all of us to sit around and accept it. No way, man. Not going to happen.
All right, Manager Falk, I think you have some direction for next week.
Thank you. That is all I have.
All right, thank you, Manager Falk. Planning and Engineering Topics, Director Fonzie.
Yes, tonight I have 3 boundary line revisions that were approved by the Planning Commission at their meeting on the 26th. The first is subdivision 8 of 2023. This is the Meyer Irwin Investors boundary line revision. This is actually the Burger King property. So when they came through for the site plan of renovating or demolishing the existing Burger King, building a new restaurant, they discovered there was an encroachment on the Taco Bell property. So part of their lot was on Taco Bell's property. So Irwin Investors owns the Taco Bell, and Evelyn Meyer owns the Burger King. And it's a little over 2.5 acres. So they're going to swap a small portion of that property. I believe it was 0.116, yeah, 0.16 acres. So they're going to be adding that to the Taco Bell, as you can see there. And And again, it's a commercial district, so there is no minimum lot size, so both lot sizes are okay. Planning Commission recommended this for approval, 6-0. Any questions on that? Okay, the next subdivision is subdivision 9 of 2023, the Masters Lukowitz plan. This is on Masters Lane, which is off of Ardera Road. And Edward and Wathena Lukowitz bought the property at 990 Masters Lane in October of 2022, and they discovered that their deck on the rear of the house encroached on the vacant property next to them. So John Masters owns the property next to them, the vacant piece. He actually lives across the street. So the issue here, besides the encroachment, was that this is located in an R4 district, and both lots were already smaller than the minimum lot size in an R4 district, so they're both non-conforming. They actually went through the zoning hearing board in April of this year to get a variance to allow both lots to still remain under that minimum size. So the vacant lot that's owned by John Masters was reduced even further. That's 0.61 acres. And the zoning hearing board granted them R3 setbacks, so that if somebody comes and builds a house, they don't have to obey the R4 setbacks, because it would essentially squeeze that lot into making, a house no bigger than a shed. So they're allowing them to go with the R3 district whenever that's going to be built upon. Again, Planning Commission recommended this by a vote of 6-0. Any questions on that one? Sorry, there's a better look. The darker polygon will go to the blue lot. That's going to encompass the deck encroachment. You can sort of see this corner here. So it just bumps it out. It didn't affect the frontage of the Masters lot, the vacant lot. However, they did use the different setbacks for the R3 district. Okay. And the last subdivision is subdivision 10 of 2023, the Poirier Davis lot line revision. Randall and Nicholas Poirier of 12025 Wilshire own a home. It's on the blue property, and they would like to add the rear portion of their neighboring lot. And they want to add 0.225 acres from Richard and Sarah Davis. The Poirier lot will increase to a little over an acre, and the Davis lot will be reduced to 0.528 acres, which is still above the minimum lot size for an R3 district. So both lots are good area-wise. And again, Planning Commission recommended 6-0 for approval, no conditions. Any questions?
Thank you, Director Fonzie.
That's it.
Any further board comments?
I'd just like to bring up something that I brought up once before, and I brought this up whenever I was first put on the board. And it is that I would like to see the township require at least some customer service training be given to its employees. And that would be internal customer service and external customer service, so that you can see that there is good treatment, civil treatment, and respect given for coworkers and the external customers as well. And in that, some civil rights training as well. And we wouldn't need to have this be like a whole day worth of training, but I do think we should require an hour or so, and then have a signature of the employees that they took the training and they understand it, so there's no misunderstandings.
Any other further board comments?
Today is Jason Atwood's birthday.
Happy birthday.
That is a true rumor. That is a true rumor. I won't be giving you the true answer as to which one.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Meeting adjourned at 8 o'clock. And talking about personnel matters, executive session to follow.